Billionaire saw a homeless girl dancing with her paralyzed son. A tattered, barefoot, hungry girl looking for something to eat slipped her body through the half-closed gate of the mansion and saw the billionaire's son sitting in silence, his face clouded with sadness and pain of loneliness. Then she did something no one expected her to do. She began to dance, not for the food, not for the money, but simply to cheer him up and to make him smile. But what happened next will leave you in shock. So take a sit. Let's see what happened next. And if this is your first time in this channel, don't forget to stay on with us till the end of the story. In the bustling heart of the city stood a mansion so breathtaking that anyone walking by often slowed down just to take it in. The mansion's golden walls shimmered in the sunlight, and palm trees towered along the compound, standing watch like sentinels of a king. To people outside, the mansion looked like a house full of joy. But inside, sadness filled the air. This was the home of Mrs. Gloria, a woman who owned the biggest fashion company in the city. She was rich and married to a wealthy man. His name was Mr. James, one of the richest men in the city too. But sorrow came when James lost his life at an event overseas. He had taken his son, David, with him since Mrs. Gloria, who is David's mother, had other plans and could not join them. A plane crash happened. David was one of the few who lived through it, but he was left paralyzed. James, his father, did not survive. He died, and Mrs. Gloria was left in pain, alone with her paralyzed son. She tried all she could, but money could not give her everything, like peace for her son who once was a happy child. David used to run in the garden, chase butterflies, and laugh so loud his voice could be heard across the street. But that happiness was taken from him 3 years ago in the crash that left his legs without life. He was only 10 years old when it happened. From that day, the boy who once ran like the wind now sat in a wheelchair. His face was pale, his eyes weak. He could not walk. He could not play. He only sat and watched as other children ran past the gates. Her mother tried everything. She brought doctors from many places, Abuja, even from America and Europe. They checked him, tested him, treated him, and gave her bills worth millions. But after all the pain and money, they shook their heads and said, "We are sorry, madam. Your son may never walk again." Mrs. Gloria's heart broke. Every night she sat on her bed, crying and praying for a miracle. Every morning she wept quietly in her room. She had cars, servants, companies, and wealth from herself and the one she got from her late husband. Yet none of it could bring her son's joy back. David also cried in silence. He remembered how his father used to play with him, always making time to take him to places he never thought he would see at his age. His father would hold him close and say, "My son, you are my pride, my legacy, and my best friend in the world." But now, his pride was drowning in pain and sadness. His laughter was gone. Day after day, he sat outside the mansion, staring at the gate, watching life move while he stayed still and quiet. In that same city lived another child, but one hidden in the shadows. Her name was Minachi, a girl without a home, without parents, and without comfort. Each day, Minachi walked through the market, hoping to find fruit peels or leftover food someone had thrown away. She begged people for money, but most times they pushed her aside, saying, "Go away, dirty homeless girl." Sometimes when hunger made her weak, she sat by the roadside, sad and in tears. But tears did not give her food. Tears did not make a way for her. Tears did not give her a place to rest her head either. One thing, however, made Minachi different from other homeless children. Whenever her sorrow became too heavy, she would sing and dance. Yes, she would rise on her hungry, thin feet, lift her hands to the sky, singing and dancing. She stamped her bare feet on the ground, moved her body, shook her head, and followed the rhythm of her own song with a pure heart. When she danced, her hunger did not hurt as much. The cold did not feel so harsh. Singing and dancing was the small fire in her soul that kept her alive and strong at her age. On that hot afternoon, she was so hungry that it burns her belly, and her throat was dry. She wandered the streets, searching for anything, maybe a bread or a fruit. As she walked near the big mansion at the estate, something caught her eye. Through an opened in the tall gate, she saw a young boy sitting in a wheelchair. His hands were resting on his lap. His face was heavy with sorrow and sadness, and his eyes were filled with pain. MONICHI stopped and stared. For a moment, she forgot her own hunger. She whispered, "This boy is rich. Yet, he looks even more hurting and sorrowful than me." She looked at him again. She could see in his face the kind of pain that no food, no money, no servants could remove. It was the pain of a broken heart and mind. MONICHI thought to herself, "When my sorrow is too much, I dance. My dance drives away my tears. Maybe if I dance for him, he might smile. Maybe he will just forget his sorrows for a moment." She looked left and then looked right at her surroundings. The security were standing far by the side of the boys' quarter, attending to some issues. At the open gate, without thinking twice, she squeezed her small body through the half-open gate. Inside the compound, MONICHI tiptoed carefully until she reached the boy. David turned his head and saw her. At first, his eyes grew wide in fear. He wanted to shout, "Security! Security!" but his voice did not come out. Instead, he thought in his mind, "Who is this strange girl in torn clothes, barefoot, with dust covering her body?" Before he could speak, MONICHI stepped closer and said softly, "Please don't be afraid. I am not here to hurt you. I only saw how sad you were when I looked through the gate, and I decided to take the risk to come in. I just wanted to make you smile, even if it's only for a second." David frowned deeply. In his thoughts, he said, "How can she do that? Can she even look at herself? She has nothing." He blinked as the strange girl bent low before him. Her clothes were torn, her hair was rough and uncombed, and her bare feet were cracked and dusty. But she did not seem to care about how she looked. David still wanted to call for help, but something in her eyes held him back. It was soft, gentle, almost like hope. The girl spoke again, her voice shaking but still strong. "I am MONICHI. Please don't be afraid. I did not come here to steal from you. I did not come to harm you either." Before David could reply, MONICHI took a deep breath, stepped a little backward, and began to dance. At first, her steps were slow. She lifted one leg, turned around, swayed her body, and sang quietly at the same time. Then, her steps grew faster. She moved with energy, her arms flying like leaves blown by the wind. She stamped her bare feet on the ground, jumped lightly, shook her head, and kept singing. She danced as though she was not hungry. She danced as though her bare feet did not hurt. She danced as though the cold, the hunger, and the rejection of the world did not exist. In that moment, it was as if the whole world was watching her, even though it was only one sad boy in a wheelchair. David's eyes widened more. At first, he only watched, his heart still heavy as always. But as the girl's voice and movements filled the air, something began to change inside him. The dance was not neat or perfect like what trained performers do, but it was full of freedom, full of spirit, full of life. For the first time in years, David felt his lips tremble. Then slowly, his face broke into a smile. The smile grew, and before he knew it, he was laughing, truly laughing. His laughter was light, almost like the one he had lost years ago. Without knowing it, his hands began to clap. "Please do it again. I like it, he said, his voice full of eagerness. I love the song too. Please, could you dance again? Monachi started again and moved faster, jumped higher, and shook her body until dust rose from the ground. David laughed so hard that tears rolled down his cheeks. It was nostalgic to him as he remembered when he danced with his father. They were not tears of sorrow. They were tears of joy and remembrance. The mansion, which had been silent like a grave for years, now echoed with his laughter. And in that moment, Monachi knew her dance had power. It could heal broken hearts and make people smile. Then inside the mansion, Madame Gloria was sitting in her room, going through some documents. But her heart was far away. For months, she had watched her son always living in darkness. For months, she had wished to hear him laugh again. Then suddenly, a sound broke the air. It was faint at first, but it grew louder. Laughter. Her son's laughter. Madame Gloria immediately dropped her papers. Her eyes widened. He whispered, "David, is that you?" She stood quickly and ran to the window. There her heart nearly stopped. There was her son clapping and laughing in his wheelchair. And before him was a girl dirty and tattered, as she moves her body and dancing like a spirit. Madame Glory was in shock. Her voice thundered, "Security! Security! Who is that girl? How did she get inside this compound?" The security rushed forward, confusion in their eyes. Madame Gloria left her room and made her way down. Her anger grew as she reached the garden. She pointed at Monachi. "You? Who are you, girl? How did you get into my compound? Security! Seize her!" The security moved quickly. Monachi froze, fear flooding her face. She dropped to her knees and raised her hands. But before they could touch him, David voiced out with heart filled with tears. "Mother, no, stop. Don't hurt her." Gloria was confused. David's face was wet with tears, but his voice was strong. "She makes me happy, Mom. Can't you see she dance? Her dance gave me joy I have never had in years now. Please don't take this away from me." The security stood still, not sure what to do. Mrs. Gloria's mouth hung open in shock. For 3 years, she had tried everything: doctors, medicines, therapists, even endless prayers. She had spent money and energy hoping to see her son smile again. Yet today, in just a few minutes, one poor girl had done what she thought was impossible. David had laughed. The sound she had missed for so long had returned. But anger and fear battled in her chest. What if this girl is a thief? What if she came with bad plans? She glared at Monachi. The poor girl knew she had crossed a line she should not have crossed. Quickly, she bent her head low and said, trembling, "Ma, I am so sorry for entering your compound without permission. I only wanted to see him smile. I have nothing. I am nothing. But I know how to sing and dance, and that is what I use to make people happy. Please forgive me." The garden went silent. For a long moment, no one spoke. The security froze, waiting for a command. David sobbed quietly as he held his mother's hand. Monachi trembled where she knelt on the floor, dust clinging to her skin. She had no idea what was in the mind of the woman staring at her. And then, something in Mrs. Gloria's heart shifted. For years she had wanted the best for her son. She had given him wealth, comfort, and care, but none of it gave him peace. Yet here, in front of her, was a girl who owned nothing but had somehow brought life back to her child's face. She looked again at Monachi. Yes, she saw a homeless girl in torn clothes, but she also saw something more. She saw courage. She saw kindness. She saw a gift, a fire to survive even when the world had given her nothing. Mrs. Gloria's face hardened again, her eyes sharp. She leaned forward and spoke in a strong voice that could pull the truth out of anyone. "Girl," she said firmly, "tell me the truth.
Who are you?
Where did you come from? And why did you enter my compound without permission?" Monichi swallowed hard, her lips dry. Her voice shook, but she answered, "Ma, my name is Monichi. I have no parents. I have no home to call mine." David leaned closer, his heart already breaking for her. Monichi continued, her words pouring out fast, like water from a broken pot. "When I was very small, my parents died in a car accident. I survived, but I was taken to a foster home. They never cared for me. No one did. They treated me like I was poison. So I ran away and decided to survive on my own. It was hard, very hard on the street. But one thing kept me going: singing and dancing. It gave me hope. I slept under bridges. I searched through dustbins for food. I begged strangers, but most turned me away. Many nights I went to bed with nothing in my stomach but tears." She paused, her voice breaking. Tears rolled down her dirty cheeks. "Sometimes people chased me with sticks when I ever begged them for food. But when the sorrow became too heavy, the only thing I remember is the song that my mother sings to me every night. My stomach may be empty, but my heart becomes light.
My tears dry.
Dancing and singing is the only friend I have to keep me company." David was in shock and was emotionally overwhelmed, his eyes flooding with tears. Madame Gloria's face softened. There she realized even though her son is in pain, he has care unlike Monichi after her life story. Though she tried to hide her emotions. "Today, when I saw your son sitting with sorrow, I feel I can relate to. I remembered my own pain. I thought, maybe if I dance for him and cheer him up, he will smile just as I smile when I dance. Forgive me, Ma, for entering without permission. I am not here to steal anything, nor to harm him either, but only to bring him joy." Silence fell in the garden, as Gloria felt the true heart of Monichi and her kind soul. David suddenly reached out to his mother. "Mother, can't you see? She speaks the truth. For years you spent millions, but I never laughed. Today she made me laugh again. Please don't send her away. Please, I have no other friends that could do what she did for me." His hands gripped his mother's tightly. Gloria felt her heart melt. Her son's voice broke her open, and she would definitely do anything for her son, anything. She looked at Monichi again. She was poor, tattered and hungry, but there was honesty in her eyes. There was goodness and kindness in her heart. At last, Gloria spoke slowly. "Monichi, your life has been hard. Yet today, you gave my son back to me, what money could not buy: happiness. From this moment, your story will change because of my son. You are no longer homeless. You will live with us. You will eat with us. You will be part of this family. I will protect you and give you all the care you deserve." David smiled with heart filled with joy. Monichi was shocked. She lifted her head, eyes wide with disbelief. "Ma, I am grateful to you. I don't know what to say." Monichi thanked her as she knelt down again. Madame Gloria lifted her up. "You don't need to do that, okay? I believe kindness deserves reward, and because anyone who brings life to my son's heart is no ordinary child." That night, for the first time in years, Monichi slept in a real bed for the first time in her life and took a refreshing bath in a nice bathroom. The bed was soft, the sheets white, the pillow fluffy. For a while, she could not sleep. She was afraid she might wake up and find out it was all a dream. In the morning, she woke to the smell of hot bread, fried eggs, and tea served to her by a maid in her. Her stomach growled so loudly that the maids laughed. She couldn't before that one day would be better served a food by someone in her room. It came as a shock to her. She sat up and ate until her belly was full, as she had not eaten for days. She had a different good feelings, something she had not felt in years, and remained grateful for it all. David was waiting for her in the garden. A maid fetched a clean cloth for Monichi that was bought for her. David at garden as he waved to Monichi. "Monichi, dance for me," he called as Monichi came down to the garden. She danced with joy, not sorrow. Her steps were light, her body alive. David clapped and smiled, his eyes sparkling. She even thought David one of her song that makes her happy as they learn it together smiling. Every morning and every night, Monichi keeps David happy. She danced for him. Each time Helid more, smiled more, and he glows again with health just like he was 3 years ago, with the feel that he wants more in life. The mansion, which had been silent for years, was now filled with music and laughter, all because of Monichi. The cooks hummed as they worked. The maids smiled as they cleaned. Even the securities, once stiff and stern, always watches Monichi sings and dances too. People passing by the mansion whispered to one another, "What has happened in the house of the late Mr. James? It was once filled with sorrow, but now we hear laughter every day." Madame Gloria would sometimes stand quietly in the corridor of the mansion looking down at the compound watching the girl and her son. Her heart, once heavy with grief, felt light again, and she smiled with joy. She thought to herself, "Truly, life is not just about riches. Sometimes joy comes from the simplest gifts we didn't expect." And so, Monichi, the homeless girl, once rejected by the streets, became the light of the mansion. Her voice, her dance became the medicine that David wanted all along, to heal his heart and bring back life again. The days turned into weeks. The weeks turned into months. And every single day, Monichi danced. David was always overjoyed and happy all the time. He had the reason to start living his life again. Going out there, even if it's in a wheelchair, he wanted to go back to school, he wanted to stop homeschooling. Madame Gloria's took the liberty to enroll Monichi to school as well with her son. For the first time in 3 years, Gloria realized that David is in a good hands. Monichi was so grateful to be enrolled in the same school with David. They both go to school together. The driver takes both of them to school and brings them back. At night, Monichi keeps David company as they do their assignment together, and she would dance in the nights when the moonlight shows up in the sky. Each time she danced and sings, David laughed. Each time he laughed, his face glowed brighter. And each time his face glowed, his mother's heart grew lighter and happy. But something else was happening. Something unexpected. Something no one noticed at first. Whenever Monichi danced, David always felt the need and joy to dance with her, and that ignited a spark of life in David's legs. At first, it was just a tingle, like he felt something crawling up his legs. He thought maybe it was his imagination and joy in his heart, and wished he could join Monichi and dance with her. But slowly and steady the crawling, and the tingling grew stronger. One bright afternoon after school, David sat by the garden, watching the sunset and getting some air. Monichi joined him later on. Both sat together as they talked together, David looking at Monichi. "I thank you for always being there for me in my life. I never thought I would be the one smiling and happy till you came along," he said as he thanked Monichi for her presence in his life. Monichi was overwhelmed with joy and happiness that she was able to change just one life of someone. After their laughs and jokes, Monichi started to sing a song she learnt from school, and so started dancing too as well, and clapped her hands. David too joined her, and as he watched her dance, he was motivated and high-spirited that he could join her. Then the unexpected happened. He suddenly gasped in surprise and in shock. "Monichi, I felt my toes move." The security straightened in shock. Monichi stopped dancing, her eyes wide.
"Move them again," she said.
David looked down at his feet. Slowly, painfully, His toes moved again. He burst into tears, covering his face. "Madame Gloria," one of the security shouted as he came into the mansion. Gloria was looked up to the security, confused why he would shout her name like that. "Your son's toe had moved. He might walk again," he said with joy. Madame Gloria couldn't believe what she heard. She rushed out into the garden, her heart pounding. She saw her son's toes moving little by little, moving for the first time in years. She fell to her knees, unable to believe her eyes. From that day, every time MONICHE danced, David tried harder to move with joy and happiness. He pressed his feet against the ground. He pushed against the arms of her wheelchair. His legs trembled, but weak. Then one bright Saturday morning, the miracle came. MONICHE danced harder than she had ever done, with a song so captivating as she twisted and jumped that alone made David so happy and joyful. David gripped the arms of his wheelchair. He felt fire in his legs, a strength he never knew he had for years. With tears streaming, he cried out, "I will surely stand." And he did, slowly and painfully. David rose to his feet. The maids screamed from the corner, their voices filling the house. One of them shouted louder than the rest. Madame Gloria heard the cry, and it ran down her spine like fire. She hurried down to the living room, and what she saw made her freeze. Her son was standing. David, who had not stood for years, was standing on his feet. His body shook a little, but he was upright. Gloria's knees gave way, and she fell to the ground, tears rushing down her face as she wept like a child. my son is standing," she cried. David took one step, then another, then another. Behind him sat the wheelchair, forgotten, as he moved forward. Slowly but surely, he kept walking, finding his balance until his legs grew steady. Then, he walked properly, step after step, until he fell into the arms of his mother. "Mom, I can walk again," he whispered, his voice breaking with joy. The whole mansion shook with cries of happiness. Maids wept, security clapped, and Gloria held her son tightly. News spread like wildfire. From the mansion to the street, from the street to the whole city. People shouted, "The billionaire's son can walk again. The boy who was paralyzed for years is now standing on his feet." Everywhere, people were shocked and filled with joy. For over 3 years, David had sat in a wheelchair. Now he was walking again. To everyone, it was nothing short of a miracle. Doctors who once shook their heads and said, "Impossible," rushed to see the boy with their own eyes. They bent to examine his legs, pressed his toes to check for feeling. And yes, he felt everything. He walked before them, step after step, and their mouths hung open. "This is beyond medicine," they whispered. "This is a miracle." He believed, and now he walks. This has never happened before. Madame Gloria wasted no time. She declared a great feast to celebrate the healing of her son. Tables were laid with food, pots filled with meals, and musicians were hired to play. The mansion, once a place of sorrow, now overflowed with music, laughter, and celebration. Guests came in hundreds, rich men and poor men, neighbors and strangers. All came to witness the wonder with their own eyes. At the center of it all stood David, smiling, walking, sometimes even dancing. And beside him was MONICHE, his new friend and sister in spirit, holding his hand as they laughed together. The people cheered and clapped until their voices grew hoarse. The house that once echoed with tears now rang with joy, and the story of David's miracle spread far and wide. When silence finally fell, Madame Gloria stood before the crowd and lifted her voice. "I want to thank you all for being here for me and my son. For years I had money, but I could not buy my son the joy he deserved. I had wealth, but I could not heal him. Doctors from many lands failed. But this girl, when I saw her, she was homeless and a kind girl. She is the one who brought back my son's laughter with nothing but her spirited dance and songs. And through that joy, a miracle came. She turned and placed her hand on Monachi's shoulder. From today, Monachi is no longer a girl without a background, a girl without a home. From today henceforth you are my daughter I never had. You are family. The crowd roared in approval. People clapped, shouted, and praised the girl who once slept under bridges. Monachi was overwhelmed and joyed. She never expected that the little of what she gave out came in with many blessings, tears streaming down her cheeks. Her heart, which once knew only hunger and rejection, was now overflowing with love. And as the drums beat, as people sang, as joy filled the air, one thing was clear. The dance of one homeless girl had turned sorrow into laughter, hopelessness into healing, and despair into a miracle. And so, Monachi, the homeless girl, became part of the Billionaire's family. But more than that, she became a living story. Whenever people told the tale, they ended with these words: "No matter how small you are, your gift can change lives. Joy can heal where money fails. Kindness can lift the sorrow of another and also lift your own. True wealth is not measured by money, mansions, or possessions. It is found in love, kindness, and the ability to bring joy to others. Sometimes the greatest miracles are not bought with riches, but are born from the simplest acts of compassion." Monachi had nothing, no food, no clothes, no shelter. Yet she gave the one gift that money could never buy: happiness. And in giving joy, she not only healed David's heart, but also transformed her own life. Kindness may come from the most unexpected places, and even the smallest light can chase away the deepest darkness. Always remember, one act of love can change a life forever. Dear viewers, what do you think about this story? I would love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed the story, give us a thumbs up, hit the subscribe button, and share it with friends. Don't forget to turn on notifications so you never miss out on our latest updates. Thanks, and see you in the next video. Bye.